So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next of our WSET School London webinar series, where we've got a very special one today with Tal Sunderland-Cohen, a great Israeli ambassador for wines of Israel. And he's going to present to us a whole great presentation on the wines of Israel, all the ins and outs. You know, for those of you who are studying, for those that you aren't studying, I think this is going to be really fascinating overview. I'm personally very excited to understand a bit more. So so let me hand over now to Tal. As I mentioned, please type any questions that you have in the chat, and we will answer those at the end of this webinar. So I'm going to be quiet now, mute myself, and hand over to Tal. Thank you, Tal, and welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure and honor being on this webinar. I'll introduce myself shortly. My name is Tal Sunderland-Cohen. I've been a wine journalist for many years. For the last 7 years, I was working for Globe's newspaper, which is our economic magazine, which is like the Financial Times, I guess, in Britain. I wrote books about wine in spirits. I'm acting as a judge in wine competitions, and also I give a lot of seminars and courses and webinars and Zoom. It's different these times. I'm also acting as the wine ambassador. So if someone wants to ask me just anything, just Tal at the wine ambassador. That's my email. It's real.gmail.com. And what else? I was chosen as the Man of the Year for Vino magazine. So that's it. This is me eventually. And today I'm located. I'm actually located half of the time I'm in Tel Aviv, half of the time in London, and I'm traveling a lot. So you can reach me almost all around the globe. Right. So Israeli wine. Very excited. I mean, it's funny because when you think about Israeli wines, people ask me, where do we locate it? Is this the, wine connoisseur asked me, is it the old world wine? Is it the new world wine? Where is it exactly? And I said, no, it's not there. It's not there. Actually, we belong to maybe a new category, ancient wine world. Because if you think about our area, including Turkey and Cyprus and Jordan and Georgia and Lebanon and Armenia and Greece, all these Mediterranean wineries, we're talking about not years ago, we're talking about 10,000 years ago when the Vitis vinifera actually started in Israel. So without further ado, let's start scrolling the presentation. And we'll go quickly on some slides so we know the history of Israel. So if we're talking about Eastern Mediterranean, as I mentioned, we're talking about 10,000 years ago. At the time, they used to make wine, but for different purposes. Of course, the most dangerous thing to drink at that time was water. Yes, water was very dangerous because, if you think about Mediterranean, it's kind of a dry, hot country. Water is very expensive to find. So you need to drill holes in the ground to have wells, maybe streams of water. Most of them were not really pure. So the best thing to do is to combine water and wine. And then with the alcohol, the combination is wonderful because then the alcohol affects the water. You can drink it with a bit of a smile on your face, which is excellent. The Bible mentioned wine all the time. I mean, when you walk in Israel, when you go to wineries or even just touring in Israel, you'll find ancient wineries all over, from the north to the south. You'll find those places that people used to step on top of the grapes and make vines. hundreds of ancient.
Sorry, Mr. Cohen, sorry. Are you
Yes.
showing us any presentation? Because we cannot see your presentation.
Oh, you cannot?
Are you present? No.
Yes,
Are you
yes,
presenting
yes.
something?
I am.
Please.
I am. You cannot see my presentation, so we'll start. We'll try to
It's fine. It's fine, Tal.
share it again.
We can see.
Tal, it's fine. We can see it. Please, if you have an issue, just write it in the chat box. It's fine. Please continue what you're doing, Tal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
In the Bible, from when we talk about Noah and the first actually person that planted the vines, and to King David, I mean, it's amazing because today, even when you walk in, let's say, Ela Valley, not far from Jerusalem, you can really walk at the battleground between David and Goliath. And today it's full of vines, it's full of grapes, it's beautiful to see it. And so can you imagine? Yes?
Sorry, could you share your screen again for us, please?
Okay, I'll do that. Let me see, because, okay.
It was there, and then when you were pressing some buttons, you came out.
Oh, maybe.
So I think you just need to share again. We're nearly there. That's it. So if you just pop it on full screen,
Is that okay?
Almost. That's it. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm sorry for the technical problems.
No,
I'll try
it's all
to rush a bit the history, because it's really interesting. I mean, history alive in Israel. That's what I'm trying to say. When you walk in Israel, when you go to wineries, history is there. You can really imagine King David, King Solomon walking the grounds, you know, patting the vineyards, and it's amazing. One of the oldest wine cellars that we find in the Galilee area, in Tel Kabiri, we're talking about 3,600 years ago. So you really can appreciate in Israel the history of the winemaking. It's still alive. And when we talk about the golden age, of course, we're talking about the Hellenistic, when the Greek and the Roman were in Israel. They actually were a lot of merchants there, and they sold a lot of Israeli wines coming from the land of Israel, to where today we found France and Italy and Spain. So wines from Israel were traveling all over the world during that time. At the time, also wine was for religious purposes. I mean, it was also a medicine, and if you want to praise your gods, whatever god you were praying for, wine was part of the rituals. So we're talking about many years. But then there was the Ottoman period and the Arab conquest, where actually wines was stopped producing, because, as you know, Muslims are believed not to drink wine, and it's not allowed in their religious. So suddenly, no winemaking and almost no vines for wine in Israel. There were a few, I would say, you know, almost a few vineyards just for really for priests and for rabbis to make wines at the time. But we're talking about the destruction, or the disappearing of all the wine history of the time. But don't worry, it came back. What happened in the 19th century? Few family come back to Jerusalem, and they settled in the old city. And in 1970, the Tepperberg family founded almost the first, I guess, cottage industry, boutique winery, if we call it in a kind of fashion marketing word, a winery. But usually it was made for local consumption, mainly sweet, red, kosher, sacramental wine. This is what they used to drink at the time. We'll talk about kosher wine in a minute, but usually the at the beginning, it was always sweet wines because, you know, when you welcome the Shabbat, you want to have something sweet to drink and sweeten your heart, sweeten your soul. So we used to make a lot of sweet wines at the time. But 120 years ago, 1882, a very famous Jewish person, Baron Edmond de Rothschild, came and he actually established the modern Israeli industry. He built 2 amazing wineries. And after that, he almost gave it as a present to the Winters. And today they call it Carmel Winery. By the way, Tapperberg family and the Carmel Winery still exist until today. They're considered to be the leading wineries in Israel. They're considered to be one of the biggest wineries in Israel, and they make a lot of amazing wines, Carmel and the Tapperberg family. So at the time, when we talk about 1882, that was the Renaissance, we call it, of the Israeli wines. Suddenly, Jews all over the world can drink again kosher Israeli wines, wines coming from the Holy Land. They used to drink it mainly for sacramental purposes, as part of our religious, before when we get married, for the Shabbat, for all our tradition and all our holidays, we usually drink wine. So for 103 years, we used to make kind of let's say medium style wine. Some of them was, most of it was sweet, some of it was dry, semi-dry, but really kind of a medium style wine, not very expensive. Mainly it was, as I said, for religious purposes. But then, ta-da! What happened, we had a visitor coming from UC Davis, Professor Cornelius O, and he came as a guest to Israel in 1974. And he realized, actually, this is a great land of having amazing wines. And he actually started to consult, and he said, listen, you can have amazing international grapes here, not the grapes that only the Baron Edmond Rothschild, because Edmond Rothschild, don't forget, he's I mean, his family. You think about Rothschild, you think about Mouton Rothschild, you think about Chateau Lafite. So you think about Bordeaux, you think about grapes coming from France. And yes, at the time, we used to have a lot of Carignan and Grenache and Semillon and all these grapes that actually came with Baron de Rothschild. And Professor Cornelius O from the United States said, listen, this is amazing place for Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot and Chardonnay. So what happened in the north of Israel, in the in the Golan Heights winery, there was a new winery came about and established a new winery in 1983, and that actually symbolized the quality revolution. After Golan Heights Winery, we started to drinking more quality wine. We started in Israel understanding more about wine. Suddenly more and more lessons and seminars and courses about wines, and suddenly you see more Israeli wines on wine menus. And in 1989, that was the beginning of what we call the boutique wine revolution. The first winery was Margalit Winery. Professor Yair Margalit came from the United States after a year of studying, and he opened the first boutique winery. And after that, kind of a flood of boutique wineries, more and more. People are looking for to plant more vines, and suddenly you see the vines that it used to be in the middle of Israel, I'll show you a map in a minute, going north and going east and looking for high grounds and going up and up to make quality grapes. So we talk about the map. Let's see where we are located. Everybody knows this. Everybody that loves wine knows this map. This is the map of the world with the two places that you can grow wines. and usually said, okay, where is Israel? Where is Israel? Well, Israel is so tiny, you cannot see. Yes, Israel is a very small banana-shaped country. It's so tiny that you even cannot see it on this map. But I can promise you, this tiny country have a lot of microclimate, and we have many elevations, and we have different wine regions. So just for example, a Cabernet Sauvignon or Syrah coming from the Golan Heights will be totally different than the wine coming from Judea Hills or coming even from our desert in the Negev. So we have vines and we have wineries coming from all over the country. So quickly go over the wine regions. On the north, just near the border of Syria and Lebanon, we have the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights is a beautiful place to grow wines. It's high in elevation, over 1,000 meters above sea level. In the North Golan, it's mainly volcanic soil and snow in the winter, hot summer, beautiful, beautiful place to grow wines. And we have the south of the Golan, just above Sea of Galilee that you can see there. Also, many great vines coming from the south of the Golan. On the left-hand side, when you see the word Tzfat is one of our holy cities in the north of Israel. You see the Galilee area. Galilee area is, I think, the prettiest vine area in Israel. You see here forest and rivers and vines, and you have amazing views of vines, and the land is a combination of terra rossa and chalk and lime and volcanic soil and a bit of gravel. So even the land is different and the altitude is different. So you can have a lot of different characters of terroir and land coming from one area. On the shore, when you see Haifa, Tel Aviv, this is our shore, this is our beach, and you'll have a lot of vines over there. This is like the place of our mass production vineyards, but it's beautiful because you have all the time the Mediterranean Sea. You have the cooling down effect, the breeze coming from the sea. So even when it's hot, it's not that hot because you have the afternoon breeze and it cools down the vines. So it's always quality climate. Samaria, also Gush Etzion, is a beautiful kind of an ancient. When you think about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, maybe you should think about that area. Beautiful high elevation of vineyards, and then we'll come into the Judea. The Judea, usually we divide it to three sections. We have the Judean coast, which is almost sea level. We have the Judean foothills. Most of the wineries are located there, and the Judean hills. Beautiful, beautiful, high, almost we call it the central mountain, and most of the quality vineyards are located there. And then we have in the south, we have our Negev. This is the desert. Now, most of the desert, you cannot, it's impossible to grow grape there, but there is some spaces that you can, that are really high, over 500, some of them are even 800 meters above sea level. And that's a perfect place to grow vines. Some of them really near the border with Egypt. And you have the durational between the day and night is quite high. So you'll have sometimes 15 and sometimes more percentage or your degrees difference between daytime and nighttime. So if you're talking about duration, this is a perfect place to have this day and night thing. So this is the wine regions of Israel. As I said, very small, but a lot of microclimate and different terroir. In the Negev, we have sandy hills. So as I said, in the north, we have volcanic terroirs in the coastline, choke volcanic soil and limestone in the hills, and sandy and clay in the south. When I say south, I'm talking about our desert and the Negev highlands. As I said, it's a small country, so only 500,000 acres under vines. Not a lot of production, I have to say, but because we cannot afford ourselves to do mass production, our wines is target for a quality wine. Most of 99% of our wines are quality wines. So we hardly have kind of this, I wouldn't say cheap, but non-expensive wines. Most of our wines are premium wines, quality wines, and of course, different prices. The climate, Mediterranean. I mean, it's funny when you, sometimes people talk about California, Mediterranean, sometimes Australia, Mediterranean. No, Mediterranean is Israel. This is like the birthplace of Mediterranean. So yes, we have a Mediterranean climate, long, hot, dry summers. It's and when we talk about long summers, we're talking about like 7, sometimes 8 months of kind of a summer. The winter is short. We have some snow on higher ground, but also again, short period. It's not like Switzerland when you can go for 3 months skiing, no. And in the desert, semi-arid and desert condition, it is hot there, man. That's why we irrigate. We need to irrigate, otherwise there is no, we don't have any chances to our vines. Although, and this is a big although, some of our vineyards started more and more in the last few years not to be irrigated because they're old vines and some of the roots are dug enough deep to get their own water. So you'll find in many places vines that are not irrigated. But as I said, and as you know, most of the new vines, most of the new vineyards, and of course in the south, you must irrigate. Otherwise, we will not have wines. At the harvest, we have, because of our microclimate, we have kind of a long period of harvest, mid to late July until the end of October. Sometimes, yes, sometimes even early November, we still harvest in Israel. Most of it is machine, of course, but we have a lot of places with hand harvesting. So mainly for premium quality wine and some of our sparkling wines, of course, we do hand harvest. Of course, in boutique wineries and boutique vineyards when you don't need this giant machine. So people are going, it's usually a family thing, family and friends, they get together, they go out and they do the harvest together. I did some, almost every year I joined an harvest, and it's it's a hard job, but it's fun. It's really fun, and I suggest to anyone that haven't been harvest in his life, go ahead, find a winery and do the harvest. It's fun. It is fun. Right. We talk about the appellation. We talk about the places in the region. I have to say, Israel has no appellation system per se. We don't. Good and bad. I mean, we like, you must plan here, or you must do this, or you're allowed to. We don't have almost any rules of harvesting or doing. So we do a lot of experimenting. And although Israel is kind of an ancient wine country, is also a new kind of country, and we're still looking to learn our vines, to learn our land, to learn what the best to do with our vineyards, and what kind of wine to make. So it's all the time is a kind of a amazing, interesting process of learning all the time. But I have to say about Judean Hill, this is quite new. This is only for the last year. Judean is the first and only region at the moment with a form of recognition as an appellation of origin. So this is the first, and I hope in the future many will come and we can find the appellation of the Golan and the Galil and maybe other places. So this is just to let you know about the appellation system. We don't have, but we do follow some rules during labeling. So if you find on the label that says Galil, coming from Galil, means that usually minimum of 85% of the vines of the grapes are coming from the Galil area. And also with single grape variety, if you find on the label Petit Verdon, you'll find that 85% minimum, 85% of the bottle is made by this wine single variety. So we do follow this kind of wine laws. It's very interesting, and people should know about it. Right, about Israel, wineries. If I had a time tunnel, I could take you 40 years, 30 years ago. We had only 7 wineries. I mean, in the 80s, beginning of 80s, we have kind of 7 wineries making mainly red, kosher sacramental wines. Yes, some white, some semi-dry, but that was it. 7 wineries, big wineries. And today we have more than 300 wineries. Amazing. It's kind of a slow but quality revolution that came all over the country. We have around 60 large commercial wineries that produce many kinds of wines, and about 300 are considerably boutique and what we call garagist or family wineries. And we have some big wineries that produce over 6 million bottles a year, like Carmel Winery that I mentioned. They produce around 10, some say 12 million bottles a year. So yes, we do have some big production of wines, but same big production, I don't mean that all the wines is mass production. At the contrary, a lot of the wine that they make, because they're so big, they make big quality, award-winning, trophy and gold medal winning wines in these wineries. Beautiful, beautiful wines. Influences, well, I mean, you can start when the influence of Baron Edmond de Rothschild, when he came with his team. So you have a kind of a French tradition and knowledge in the 19th century. But then 100 years later, you have the Californian expertise. You have more of kind of a new world influence in the 2000s. You have more kind of an Australian influence. More and more labs and supporting techniques, and today I think this is the most interesting time in the time of the Israeli wineries, because we do everything. People are curious, they want to study more and more. So you have from natural, organic, a lot of our wineries are sustainable, use sustainable techniques. So you'll see the evolution of winemaking, and I think there is no better time to drink an Israeli wine than now. I mean, if someone would say, oh, I drank Israeli wine 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they don't make wine like they used to make. And I said, yes, thank you. Better not to drink wines from 40 years ago. I mean, some of them were good, but most of them were, today, really amazing, award-winning, I think unique, so unique you can really taste the land. You can really taste the character of Israel through the wines. And some of the wines you can really enjoy the sun and the ocean through these bottles. Beautiful wines coming from Israel. I know that usually people ask me about grape varieties. What is the indigenous grape varieties in Israel? Yes, we do have, but as I said, we do experiment and we do have everything. And because we don't have kind of a strong and severe appellation system, we can do whatever we want, and we love it. So, just to mention, the production is mainly reds. We still do amazing reds, 65% approximately, okay? Red wines, we do a lot of white wines. People are more and more enjoying white wines. Of course, it's a hot country, so people are trying to drink cold wine, crispy wines, white wine. We have amazing rosés. We have some orange wine. We do make sparkling wines, what we call the traditional method, and we have dessert wine. Now, when I talk about dessert wine, I'm not talking about sweet kosher sacramental wine. I'm talking about like a proper dessert wine, late harvest, some of them even botrytis wine, and even ice wines. Yes, we do have kind of a heights wine in Israel. So we have everything. And of course, let's say port style or from more wines that are with alcohol. Right, shall we go? Oh, that's the most amazing. I love this list. So we have I love this list because you can see how many grapes we use. We use the Cabernet Sauvignon, the Merlot, and the Syrah and the Shiraz. And by the way, when I say Shiraz, you'll have you can have like a North Syrah wine with a beautiful kind of a peppery style, violet, more like this, like the North Front style. And you can have a full body monster Shiraz, the same country. You'll have both of them. And we have the Cabernet Franc. More and more people like the Cabernet Franc in Israel. And it's really considered to be a more kind of an Israeli Mediterranean grape variety. The Carignan is doing a big comeback. I mean, it used to be a mass production grape for doing a lot of wines. Today, you'll find some amazing old vines making super premium wine. So the Carignan is doing a comeback. The Durif, or what we call the Petit Syrah, also big in Israel, beautiful wine. Petit Verdot. I mean, when you talk about Petit Verdot, usually you do a reference like a blend wine. Okay, we'll add a bit of Petit Verdot to have maybe some structure, some tannins. No, we have 100% Petit Verdot. Beautiful, masculine, beautiful wine made from Petit Verdot. And we have Malbec, and we have our Pinot Noir, and the Mourvedre, and the Grenache, and the Nebbiolo, and Pinotage. Yeah, you think you're in Italy. No, it's all in Israel. And we talk about white, we talk about the Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc. I mean, guys, try and have an Israeli Sauvignon Blanc. Don't think about the New Zealand style. Don't think about kind of a sharp Sancerre. Try to think about a marriage between these two grape styles, between these two wine styles, but under a marriage chuppah in the Holy Land. It's beautiful. We have a nice Sauvignon Blanc. Our Gewürztraminer is really, really fashionable at the moment. Viognier, White Riesling, Emerald Riesling is doing also a comeback. The Colombard, Muscatel Alexandria is big in Israel also, mainly for dessert wine. Our Chenin Blanc I think is going to be one of our signature grapes. Beautiful wines coming from Chenin Blanc, Semillon, Roussan, Marsanne, Pinot Blanc, all this in Israel. And if you didn't have enough, let's continue. Yes, we have Sangiovese, and we have Ternat, and we have the Tempranillo, and Touriga Nacional, and Tintacao, like here in Portugal, and we have the Zinfandel, and two indigenous grapes, argament and the petuni. I'll speak about them in a minute. And the white, we have the Muscat Caleli, and Pinot Brie, and the Marawi, and the Jandali, and the bookie, and the Baladi. And you think, what is this? This is our some of our unique grape varieties that we do a lot of wine. Let me quickly go over that. But first of all, the argament. The argament was created in 72 in order to give us kind of a grapes, the grape that give a lot of color. We wanted to have kind of a grape that is strong, can survive the heat. So we did a cross between Carignan and Sauternes, and we created this argament. Yes, at the beginning it was mainly to give color to a lot of our wines, but today with old vines and special treatment, we have amazing argament coming from some exclusive wineries. If you're looking for something special, try to look for argament. It's sometimes spicy, ripe fruits and smoky, beautiful, beautiful wine. So look for argament. Argament in Hebrew is that color of kind of a between red and purple, kind of a magenta color. This is what argament means. Petuni, someone said to me, this is the answer of Pinot Noir. It's also a very ancient local variety. It's a beautiful, we started now making more and more wines out of Petuni. Again, ancient. This is kind of a light, flowery, aromatic, special wine. Nothing like you tasted before. This is the reds. Let's go to the whites. The Marawi, some call it Hamdani, ancient indigenous grape. It was found by mistake. Actually, a combination between the beginning was the combination of an Israeli winery and Palestinians' vineyards, and they found out that they can make unique wines out of it. Is a beautiful. I mean, this is nothing like you tasted before. I mean, when you think about, this is a real Mediterranean. It's not when you call about fruity wine or a floral wine or herbaceous. This is more a combination of all of that and mainly intense aromas. So look for a Marawi or Hamdani, and you'll have a totally different experience than the rest of the white wines that you know. The bookie is also very interesting. The bookie actually was an eating grape, and the name in Arabic, devek, dabuki, means like a glue. It's so sweet. The grapes are so sweet. It's like glue your mouth. So you can imagine a lot of sugar, but also beautiful acidity in one grape. So we have the bookie, and the more and more wineries are now doing wines from the bookie. Some of them are 100% the bookie. Some of them are blending it with Sauvignon Blanc and Gewürztraminer. Look for the bookie. Again, really, really interesting. Let's continue. Many times Israeli wines are connected to kosher wines. So I have to tell you by now, okay? None of all the Israeli wines are kosher, and none all the kosher wines coming from Israel. I mean, you have a lot of kosher wines coming from all over the world. But Israel is, of course, the main quality manufacturer of kosher wine. So when I say keeping it kosher, what is kosher? I would immediately say kosher is a style of making wine. Like when you think about biodynamic, or when you think about organic, or when you think about natural wine, right? So it's a style, it's a philosophy, it's a way of making wine, mainly based on tradition method. So this is what we call kosher wine. I would say again, the manufacturing wine of the wine from the harvest till the bottle is similar, totally similar to the way that you make wine all over the world. But to be kosher, you need special condition. And let me do it quickly. Kosher means to fit, like fitting to the tradition of the observant Orthodox Jews that keep the Shabbat, okay? It's very important to them. So most of the wineries, the big wineries, I mean, in Israel, they do a kosher wine for two reasons. First, to respect the people that are looking for a kosher wine in Israel and all over the world. And second is a marketing thing, because if you want to sell more wine, it must be kosher. You'll have double supervision. You'll have, of course, the winemakers' quality assurance in the wineries, but you have also the supervision of the rabbis to make sure that everything is done by the tradition and the quality assurance in the vineyards and of course in the winery. When we talk about agricultural rules, we're talking about something that takes us way back to the Bible, meaning I think 99% of our vineyards, when they plant, you do not harvest them until only the fourth year. Only in the fourth year you're allowed to harvest the wines, which is amazing because you give the vines enough time to get strong, you know, to build the character. It's like, you know, it's like sending a child to work. No, you don't send child to work. You want it to grow, you want it to become a man or a woman, and then you can send them to work. Exactly with vines, you need them to build a structure, to be strong, and then you can take the grapes out of them. Also, in our tradition, every 7 years, you need to let the ground rest. So if you're talking about sustainability, agriculture, this is what we're talking about, okay? Every 7 years, we let the ground rest and only, again, we harvest. So in many places, you just leave the ground like that. The grapes are falling, get nourishment to the ground again. Yes, you take care of it, but you don't, you take care of the vines, but you don't take a lot of the ground. So the ground, the soil is getting back a lot of minerals and a lot of, I think, energy is also a good word to use it. Once you harvest the grapes from, let's say, crushing time until you bottle and you cork, you seal the bottles, all these things must be touched by Orthodox Jews that observe the Shabbat, okay? From crushing till the seals with corks or screw caps, whatever, must be taken care of Orthodox Jews. So we know that only observant are doing the actually the manufacturing of the wine. Only kosher substance may be used, and we check that, the fining, the yeast, the agent, etc., all this. And I put some stamps of kashrut, what we call, on the side, so you can usually see them on the back label of the bottles. Some bottles will have more than one kashrut label, so they're respecting a lot of, let's say, they're not religions, but current or communities, let's say communities of Orthodox people. There is no legal requirement. I mean, I'm talking about like government, no, there's no requirement for making kosher wines. And we have a lot of, many of the Israeli wineries are not kosher. Now, I'm going to tell you something that is quite maybe strange to hear, but I think 85% of the overall wines in Israel are kosher, but a lot of the wineries are not kosher, if it does make sense. So because there are a lot of boutique wineries, they choose not to be kosher. So you'll have more wineries that are not kosher, but the overall production of wine in Israel, more than 85, it is kosher. Okay, so just to make sense out of that, and to sum it up, kosher wines do not have to be sweet or taste awful. No, it's a beautiful, dry, high quality, award-winning wines. All of them can be kosher, and of course, as the rest of the world, some kosher wines are suitable for vegetarian and vegans. So we have all that. Now, a bit about Israeli wines around the world. We export. I have to say, in Israel, we drink of most of our wines. We are in love with Israeli wines, and we drink most of our wines ourselves. But we export. We export a lot, mainly for Jewish communities, but not only. So you can find Israeli wines and kosher wines in Michelin stars restaurants all over the world, in wine clubs, in wine bars, wherever you go, all over the world. Our main market outside of Israel is the United States. And then we have France. Yes, in the United Kingdom here, we have also a big community, and a lot of wineries from Israel are coming here to London. And if you're looking for Israeli wines and you don't know where to look for, ask me. I'll give you my email at the end. Just ask me whatever you want, and I'll tell you where to get it. Or if you want my advice and things like that, I'll tell you again. Germany, Canada, and we're not talking about Asia. Yes, you can find Israeli wines in Japan and in China and in Thailand and in Taiwan, and you can find Israeli wines all over. And as maybe some of you follow the news, that just a few weeks ago we signed a peace agreement with Dubai and Abu Dhabi and many countries that were not in good situation the last years for the longest time. And now you can find Israeli wines in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and all these places. Amazing, exciting. So yes, you can find Israeli wines almost wherever you want. We have two masterful wines. The first one was Ran Peak, the CEO and the chief winemaker of Tzoa Winery. And the first picture that I saw, I show you, the Shoresh vineyards belong to Tzoa Winery. Thank you, Ran, for let me use this picture. And Ido Levinson, just I think a month ago or maybe 2 months ago, he gained his Master of Wine. So he's the second and the newest Master of Wine that we have. Is the chief winemaker of Bakan Winery. Bakan Winery is our biggest winery in Israel. They make also mass market wines, but also amazing boutique quality restaurant award-winning wines. So look for Tzoa Winery, look for Bakan Winery, and taste what these guys are doing with the wines, not only with their knowledge. What else? I think when you talk about wine, you need to combine wine with food. It usually go together. So you'll see the last few years, the Israeli culinary is growing, and you'll find a lot of Israeli restaurants all over the world. And I'm not talking about, another falafel place or another shawarma place making amazing food. No, I'm talking about like high quality Michelin star or, high quality restaurant. And just to mention, even here in London, you know about Yotam Ottolenghi and Meir Adoni, the chef Meir Adoni, all over the world, Asaf Granit with his restaurant here. If you think about Cold Shade, Call Office and Barbary and Palomar. That's all the stuff underneath a restaurant, and Al Shani that have from New York to France. Books about Israel, yes, about food, about culinary. Even I wrote some books, so if you're looking for some books related wine, look for my name on it. And of course, we have all these amazing food restaurants are also winning a lot of trophies and awards. Shaya in the Restaurant of the Year in the United States. Just look for Israeli culinary and you'll find heaven. Why to taste Israeli wines? I think you'll find it something different. I mean, we have, well, for us, for Jews, it's opportunities to support Israel, of course. And the best kosher wines in the world are coming from Israel. So you have the most, not only quality, but range of kosher wines from like a minerally, sharp, dry white wines to sweet wines, high quality. You have from sparkling wines to of course rosé and orange wine and beautiful red wines. So you'll have everything. You try it and you can feel Israel. For Christians, yeah, of course, wines coming from the Holy Land is always a nice experience. Sommeliers and wine buyers. I mean, look, guys, with all due respect, if you don't have any Israeli wines on your portfolio, something is missing. If you don't have wines coming from one of the most ancient wine countries in the world, your portfolio is not full. You need, and if you need my advice, guys, for free, I'll give it to you. But you need to have Israeli wines on your portfolio. It's like inconceivable that you don't have Israeli wines on your portfolio. And of course, wine geeks, yeah, like me. We always look for something exotic, something new, something interesting to taste. Oh, what is this marawi wine? What is this the bookie wine? What is this argament? Oh, I must taste it. I must taste it the next time I'm going to this wine bar or my next wine suppliers. And for foodies, I mean, if you're doing kind of Israeli cuisine, you want to cook like ottolenghi, yes, you need the perfect partner, which is Israeli wine. So this is, I think, most of the reason why you need Israeli wines in your cellar, and at least to taste some of the Israeli wines. I don't have a clue. I have to say I don't have a clue. Yes, I think we're okay with time. So I think I made it almost 1 hour. My email is Tal, that's my name, at easy, thewineambassador.co.uk. Easy to remember, thewineambassador.co.uk. Write me and I'll try to help you as much as I can. And now, Lauren, if you're still with me, I'll be more than happy to take any questions, if there are any.
Yes, there's a lot of questions.
Oh. Okay. I hope it was not. Was it okay?
No,
was
it was
okay?
Brilliant. I learned so much. You may well have answered some of these questions as we went through, but I was kind of furiously writing them out, so I may have not have noticed. But there's been some really fantastic questions, There's clearly some knowledge here as well within our audience. There's some questions have been answered internally, if you like. I haven't been very helpful, I'm afraid. So I'm going to hand it over to you. So I've got around 14 questions here. So okay. Let's see how we go. So thank you everyone for your participation. So first question from Sylvina is, what region is best to grow vines or fruit with good acidity?
Higher ground, places like north of Israel. So you have the Golan Heights, some of the Galilee area. This is higher grounds, volcanic and chalky soil. Some places like in the Judean hills, perfect for white with high acidity grapes.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. So I think this was answered, but let's just clarify. What is the name of the desert area for wine?
Negev.
Negev.
Negev is our the name of our desert.
Okay, thank you. I think that did get answered actually. Just wanted to make sure. Thanks for that question, Sharon. And then question number three, organic wines. This is an interesting one. Is there a lot of it considering the climate? This is from Emily.
We do have some, not a lot of organic wineries. We have more organic vines, they're organic wineries. It's not easy to be organic in Israel. It's a process. More and more wineries are being organic, but it's a process. So we don't have a lot.
So just about that, is it that people practice organic, but they don't necessarily get the certification?
I think, organic wine is a process of also learning, okay, of education. You need to convince some people that making organic wine will produce better wines, because people usually, most of the people, of course, they don't think about the land, of protecting the land. They think about, okay, if I need to invest, let's say 20 quid in a bottle of wine, is organic wine will be better than a normal wine or not? And we need to educate more and more people about that you not only buy better, you also buy protection to the land, you buy sustainability, you buy actually something that make an effort to keep our world more safe. So it's a process. I do know that we don't have a lot of organic wines, but it's a process more and more.
Okay, thank you. So there was an interesting comment about this. Drip irrigation is what? So what kind of irrigation do you generally use? So it was suggested that it might be drip irrigation, and then someone said that you invented drip irrigation. So thank you, Gabriele, for that question.
Yes, I think it's a common knowledge. Israel invented the drip irrigation because again, you need to think about a hot climate country, very small. We had to focus on how to spend the small water that we have into make it count. So yes, we do. We use a lot of drip irrigation, and it's not only for irrigation. Sometimes it's to transfer some nutrients into the vines, and sometimes into control. Yes. So we invented the drip irrigation, and we use it the most.
So yeah, that's one you use most. Okay, thank you for that. So another question, quite a few kind of climate questions here. Do winemakers have problems due to climate change, for example, drought and heat? And that was from Marieke.
It's a trick question, because some of the places, well, we need to go one by one, but I'll try to make it a general thing. Because we have the breeze coming from the sea, and we have kind of dry influence coming from the east, okay? So we don't have like humid climate. So botrytis kind of a thing is a rare thing for us. We don't have a lot of rot in Israel. So what we try to do is to try, instead of expose the grapes to the vines, we try to hide them and to give kind of a leaf over protecting the vines. And we use a lot of the VSP canopy system. So in one hand, you protect the vines, but on the other hand, you expose it to the winds and the breeze coming.
Okay, so right, so just varying climates.
Very
Sort of
very
with that.
yeah.
Okay, what are the main, so we had some questions and some terminology that I wasn't familiar with. I'm not sure everyone was familiar with. What are the main reasons to organise a winery as kosher or not kosher? You may have answered that.
Well, I think it's two things. First of all, it's a matter of belief. It's a matter, if you're an observant Jew and you believe and you're a religious person, you want your production to be kosher. So this is why some of the wineries are kosher, because this is my belief. This is the way I want to make the wines. Second is a marketing thing. A lot of boutique wineries started in as non-kosher, and then when they grow, they needed to expose their wines to more and more communities, and then they become kosher. Now, to become kosher winery, it's not an easy process. You need to change your labels of the wines, because people can become confused from, is it kosher, is not kosher? You need to change the label, so it will be the look and feel will be totally different. And suddenly the winemaker is not touching himself, but observant Jews are doing the wines.
Okay, now there was some terminology. So it said someone was asking, kosher can be mevushal or non-mevushal, and I wasn't sure what that meant or what the difference was.
I'll make it quick, because I can have another seminar or another webinar only about kashrut laws. Mevushal means that the wine has gone in the process. Usually it's a flash pasteurization of the grape juice before it become wine, meaning that as a religious thing, it doesn't considered to be a wine for religious purposes. Okay, so if I'm going to a wedding and a non-Jew person, or not even a non-Jew, and non-Orthodox person serve the wine for me, I can drink it because it became mevushal, mean pasteurized wine. 99% of the wines in Israel are non-mevushal, so they don't go into this pasteurization process.
Okay, that sounds like a whole nother
webinar. Thing, if you need kind of more, yes. If someone really wants, write me an email. I'll send the real method of what is the difference between mevushal and non-mevushal.
Okay,
Easy.
I mean, just to have an idea of what those words mean. Thank you.
Yes.
So just a couple more, bear with us. Do you expect to have more appellation rules, and what would you think of that? And that was from Martin.
Martin, thank you for this question. I think, yes, we'll have more appellation rules. It's a process. I think if we want, as a country, to become or to belong to the wine industry around the world, and how people expect wine and how to read wine and how to understand wine, we need more demarcation. We need more rules in order that people will able to read, or even to understand. And even when you do level 3 or level 4, the diploma in WSET, you'll have Israeli wines and then the rules like you have in other countries.
Yeah, it makes it a bit easier to understand sometimes, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So we've got a few questions about importing and exporting and stuff like that, mostly exporting actually. Is most Israeli wine consumed domestically, or is there an export market as well? That was from David.
Thank you, David. Well, around 80 to 85% of the wines in Israel are local. They're drink local in Israel. We love our wine. It goes great with our food. We drink it. But we know that we have to supply our beautiful wines to any other places. So 15, it depends of the year, of course, but 15 to 20% are export around the world, from Australia to Europe, from Japan to Canada, from Africa to everywhere.
Amazing. We had a good old chat about France. So I'll link this to Emily's question. You said that France was your #2 market, and what was
Yes.
the reason behind that? And what's your target consumer? Because those of us who visit France or live in France, when you go to the shops, you don't see a lot of wines that aren't from France.
Yeah, you're right. But I think the right question or the right answer is quite straightforward. Two reasons. First of all, we have a lot of Jewish communities in France. So, and they support the Jewish wine industry. So they buy kosher wine and they buy Israeli wines. That's why we have a lot in France. But also, a lot of the chefs, a lot of the restaurateurs in France, they started the last, I think, 20 years to appreciate Israeli wines. And because, you know, they want something special, they want something unique in their wine menu. So that's why you'll find many Israeli wines in a lot of restaurants and hotels around France. Mainly 5 stars and Michelin stars, yes.
Oh, that's very interesting. Didn't expect
Yeah.
that answer. Okay, so just a couple more. So another kosher question: can winemakers produce non-kosher wines from grapes grown in the 7th year or the sabbatical year? I think this can be a simple yes or no answer. And if anyone wants to know more, they'll have to email you, I think.
The answer is yes. There is a way to do that. But yes, if someone wants, just write me an email and I'll answer everything.
Good. Okay, here's a question. I'm not sure about the wording, but yeah, so thank you for that last question, Tony. So this is a question from Edwin. How is it possible to make reasonable wine in the area of the Negev desert? I'm absolutely quoting that question.
No, it's a very good question. You have to understand that our desert is not like the Sahara Desert, right? We have it's a high altitude. We're talking about 800 meter above sea level. It's dry. It's not again, it's not a sandy Sahara thing. So when you plant the wine, you give it the right irrigation. The vine goes into the ground deeply, get its own nourishments, and then you have the most amazing vines. Add to that the durational between day and night, and you'll see amazing wines coming from the desert.
Fantastic. I mean, yeah, let's face it, we've got lots of arid places, you know, central Spain, for example, you know, it is very possible. So what percentage of wines are contributed by boutique wineries? I think this was from David. I can't, this question.
Can you repeat the question? Because
what percentage of wines are contributed by boutique wineries?
Oh, it's only, I think it's something like 20% from all the wine consumption, wine production in Israel is coming from the boutique small wineries. Okay. As the majority of the wines are coming from our more industrial wines. So we have like 50 to 60 big wineries that make most of the wines, and the boutique family are around 20%.
Okay, thank you for that. That's not a bad percentage, is it really?
Yeah.
So just last couple of questions. Where can you buy Israeli wines in Brazil? That's from Pollyanna, and I think we have quite a Brazilian contingent here this evening, so I think they'd like to know.
Well, in Brazil, you'll get some shops that you can get. I think the best thing, I'm not in Brazil at the moment, but again, if someone wants, send me an email, I will find again where is the shop, where is the place you can buy. But just look for synagogues, Jewish communities. Where you find Jewish communities, when you find synagogues, you for sure find Israeli wines there.
And I also think there was a recommendation somewhere in the chat there as well. So we've got some really very helpful participants here this evening.
Thank you.
There's just a couple more questions that have just popped up. Sylvina is asking about the skin of the grapes. Are they thicker because they grow in the Negev desert?
Well, you know, we use in the Negev, we use the thick grapes like you know, the like Syrah and like the Cabernet Sauvignon. But you, because we experiment a lot, and you think desert, you think heat, but again, it's high altitude. Some places, like in Yatir, you'll have snow in winter, and you'll have cherries there. So some of the places you can even have Pinot Noir. So it's not a yes or no question. You can find almost everywhere, but overall, yes, you'll find the fake grape skin in the hot areas.
Okay, fantastic.
Did I answer?
I think you've answered.
I hope I answered.
I think you've answered that question. One person did ask a bit about botrytis, but at the same time you were talking about the lack of botrytis. Do you have any botrytis wines? And if you do, what are the grape varieties?
Well, we don't have every year, and we don't have usually botrytis. It's like amazing years, and you know, we had once in the 80s, we had, I think it was 87, we had botrytis wine coming from the Galil area. I know that Carmel Wine is doing another botrytis wine. It's not every day, it's not every year, it's rare, but when we have it, we jump all over it, and we'll do an amazing botrytis wine. And mainly from, it depends, but it's Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc, usually.
Well, of course, if the Rothschilds are going to make a botrytis wine, it's going to be the Bordeaux grape varieties, isn't it?
Of course.
And yeah, so someone just asked quickly, I think this is the last question, I think it is. So someone, well, Sylvia who said soils are mixed composition. I think they want to know what is the composition?
You'll find everything. I think we had many Bordeaux combination, let's say 20 or 10 years ago. Today, it's more a combination of Rhone Valley and Mediterranean. So you'll have the Cabernet and Syrah. You have the Syrah and the Viognier, and you have a lot of combination, beautiful combination. But more and more experiment, more and more kind of a Rhone style wines, more and more Israeli. When you think about the combination, like 55% the bookie, 25% Sauvignon Blanc, and 20% Gewürztraminer in one of our beautiful Femitage wine coming from the Tepperberg winery. I mean, this is unique. This is, you won't find anywhere in the world. And when you taste the wine, you say, wow, this is amazing Israeli wine. So yes, this is more the direction that we're going now. More local, independent, Mediterranean combinations.
Well, I think your enthusiasm, Tal, is absolutely infectious. We've had so many people saying how much they've so thoroughly enjoyed this presentation, and they think you're a fantastic presenter. You know, it's been so easy to listen to you, and you've made things so understandable. This really has been a fantastic session with you this evening, Tal. So thank you so much on behalf of everyone watching, on behalf of WSET School. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here with us this evening. You know, I think I'm getting a lot of people saying, when is Israel going to be more on the specification for the level 3 and level 4? I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. So you see what you've done now, Tal. You've made my life quite difficult. But no, it's been absolutely brilliant, and you know, you've really waved the Israeli flag for wine there, and I think there's going to be a lot more people trying these wines out. They certainly sound absolutely brilliant. So thank you ever so much.
It was my pleasure and honor participating tonight or this morning, wherever you are in the world. Please share with me your thoughts. Write me an email.